All right, folks, it's time to start. I'm going to speak as loudly as I can because I understand that it's difficult to hear at the back of the room. Can you hear me at the back of the room? Wonderful. So when everybody comes up here to speak, I'm going to urge them to speak loudly, get as close to the microphone as possible. Well, welcome to the Greater Vancouver Motorsports Pioneers Induction Ceremony. I'm Alan Edwards, and I'm thrilled to be here. Since 2001, the GVMPS has held an annual induction ceremony inducting 343 pioneers. 8 clubs have been recognized, along with 17 winners of the Sandy Lovelace Memorial Award, and 1 winner last year of the George Bell Memorial Award, which will be awarded again this year. People have been recognized for their contributions to the history of motorsport in British Columbia, and specifically the Greater Vancouver area. This is our 22nd induction ceremony to recognize and record the contributions of those who are pioneers in motorsports in this region. Pioneers are generally considered to have contributed or have begun their contribution at least 40 years ago, prior to the induction, and have had a strong connection to the Vancouver area and this region in the following categories: hot rod, custom car and drag racing, sports car and road racing, oval racing, motorcycling, powerboat racing, supporter, and others who have contributed. Everyone should have a souvenir program available at the front for $10. That's your takeaway for the day. There's also the commemorative books for $20 each, which illustrate the pioneers, their stories, their pictures. That's just a great read. It's going to be a long winter, so don't leave without those books. We also have the classic editions, volume 1 and 2, as I've said, and they're available for purchase. Buy your 50-50 tickets, or you're going to have big Steve Holloway to contend with. Where's Steve? Steve knows who you are if you haven't bought. And purchase your tickets for the amazing wine draw. There's 2 baskets this year, and get up and talk and sign up for the silent auction. Cold drinks on the left of it, as I've said before, and we will be feeding you. The ceremony will be inducting 13 people today. The ceremony takes just a little over an hour, and then we'll put the food out so everybody will get fed. I want to recognize the GVMPS committee members. Ken Baco's the president, and those who serve on the committee. We meet every month. It's a lot of work to put this on. We've all worked together for a long time. Can you stand up and be recognized, please, committee members? Thank you very much for introducing. I also want to take a moment to recognize those people who have already been inducted. Can you put your hands up, those who have already been inducted out of the 320? Look at these people. Really amazing. On a sad note, we lost one of our charter members and the driving force of what we do. Tom Johnston, engineer, builder, racer, team owner, and author, passed away earlier this month. Our thoughts are with Tom's family. Tom's contributions to the motorsport pioneers were simply immense. He was really our driving force and our guidance throughout everything we do. So here's to Tom's memory. Wonderful man, and he'll be missed. Our president, Ken Baco, is now going to say a few words. Ken.
Good afternoon. Just like to thank everybody for coming out. And our volunteers, I don't get to thank them very much. They do a wonderful job, and we got to keep this up. We're going to keep going for sure. But just another thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Today's proceedings will include 13 inductees. Each one will come up to the podium. They'll be introduced. They'll say a few words about why they're being inducted by the Motorsports Pioneers Society. Jerry Frechette, our esteemed photographer, will take their photos, so everybody stands up here. And at the end of our ceremony, we will want all the inductees to come up with their plaques and get a group photograph. That's very important. And I want to Also guide you to our website, gvmps.org. Everything's there, the pictures, the write-ups of all our 343 inductees, who we are, what we do. So it's very important to go to that website and to make sure that you're up to date on what it is we do and who we induct. So now to the nominees. Our first nominee is Ron Bougie for Hot Rod and Custom Car. I want to say a few words about Ron, who's been an amazing force here in the lower mainland area, Chilliwack specifically, and also Edmonton. Ron has been playing with cars since he began walking. He's worked for no pay at his grandfather's Royal Light gas station on Twig Island, which was just at the end of the Fraser Street Bridge in Richter. He started there at the age of 13, working for nothing. His first car was a 1934 Ford Cabriolet, which he fixed up and drove to high school. Well, that would have been my dream. He became a journeyman welder and millwright who found time to build hot rods. His builds would go on to win multiple awards on the ISCA circuit and Good Guys events, and were featured in magazines. Ron also raced go-karts internationally. Bougie's Hot Rod Shop in Chilliwack has built numerous show-winning hot rods. He's built cars for his wife and 2 daughters. His current project is a 1955 Studebaker station wagon. Could you come to the front, Ron Bougie? Please.
I don't talk much in public. I did teach school for a number of years in Edmonton, so I do know how to talk. But, you know, it's hard to imagine being just a regular Joe that was a machinist and a bunch of tickets and loved cars, so it was a natural thing to do. And when I came out, you mentioned that I came out and worked at my grandpa's on Twig Island. And the mechanic at Twig Island, he built hot rods too. And they used to race them at a track, I don't know, somewhere, Washington. And so I came out for 3 or 4 years, never got paid anything, but I'll tell you, I got paid a lot in memories and stuff. And it just was a natural, it seemed so natural. I was also a boxer. And I won the Canadian Boxing Championship, and my dad did too. And so we're in the record books for those 2 awards. But I'm not here to even represent anybody that boxes. I'm long removed from that. My wife could be here now. But anyways, looking out at the faces and talking to people in here today, I realized this meant even a lot more to me than I thought it would. I thought, hey, that's kind of cool, right? It was kind of nonchalant about it. And as I came in the door today here, people started coming up to me and recognizing me and saying they were happy for me. I realized it's a hell of an award. And I feel very honored that I got it. I don't know how the votes goes or how they do that and everything, but obviously I fit in the niche, and here I am. So if anybody has any questions for me after I'm off this microphone, I'll get to go after. I'll be around, and if you want to ask me about a 4-wheel independent suspension car, that's my specialty. And the guys with dropped axles probably hate me. Ask Wayne Schultz, he drives a car and put 100 and some thousand miles on it now. Yeah, so anyways, thank you very much for this, and it's really nice to meet the people that I don't know and the people that I have known to say, well, it's a hell of a deal. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. Great history there, and you're now in our Hall of Fame. And that's where you belong. Our next nominee is Keith Cahill, Demolition Derby, Oval Racing, presented by Doug Harder. Doug?
Thanks, Ellen. As we mentioned, we tried to, with the demolition drivers, it was such a huge part of the greater Vancouver area. And D&E alone used to have 250,000 people used to attend every year to watch those. A lot of them never knew what a demolition derby was until they bought their fair admission and go see the action. And then they return time and time again. And Keith not only competed from Victoria, take his cars all the way here to Vancouver to compete, but he also raced at Western Speedway. Western Speedway is gone now. It was sold 2 years ago when the owner finally passed away, and he had 9 daughters. Neither one of them wanted the Speedway, so they got together and sold the track for something like a high $20 million. Split the money, and they donated $2 million to somebody that would build another track. And if they sold their property for over $20 million, you can imagine what a property over Vancouver Island is worth today. So Keith raced over there for 42 years in every class of car that he could imagine. And he was also a big NASCAR fan. So when Terry Labonte was honored with a tribute from NASCAR, Keith went down. They had a snowstorm that weekend, canceled the event, so they all went home and had it again on the following weekend. And he went down for the second time. And NASCAR officials said, if a guy from Canada can come all the way down here to watch one of our guys get awarded, we're going to have him present the award. So Keith was able to present the award at a NASCAR event for Terry Labonte. And there's lots of other information. It's on page 24 and 25 in your program. And another thing come to mind that Keith did was Steve Holloway, after he raced across Canada, and we all know that he didn't end his life very well. He had a lot of problems. But when he finished that race, he was honored by so many different organizations, the Cancer Society, etc. So the P&E at that time decided to make a day in honor of Steve Holloway. And much to their surprise, and you can read about it in the book here, they said you can go on any ride, you can eat any food, go on any concert, what do you want to do most? And what he chose was to drive in a demolition derby. And Erwin Swangard at that time, and all these stories are told to me offhand by the publicity department, Erwin Swangard says he's only got one leg. If he hurts that one, he's going to sue and we'll be in trouble. But they couldn't talk Steve out of it, so he did drive. And a demolition car, the first thing to go is all your linkage from your transmission and things like that. So most of the derby drivers, they just take a cable, they take an axe or drill, bash a hole in the firewall, and put a cable through the firewall, and just attach that cable to the carburetor on the inside. They got the end of that cable. So it was just perfect for Steve, because he only had one leg, so he had that for the gas pedal. And he won second place in his heat with all regular guys, and nobody was taking it easy on him, because points were at stake and money, etc. So anyways, Keith donated his car, the transmission was faulty, and once they selected his car as Steve would drive, he changed the transmission in it, put a back seat in this car for the cameraman, and so he did all that out of the goodness of his heart. So Keith, I've known him for a long time. He's an exceptional person as well as a motorsport enthusiast. So at this time, we'd like to present Keith Cahill with his award. Keith?
Go ahead.
hear me? Sorry about that. First of all, I'd like to thank all the executive members of the GVMPS for considering me, let alone accepting me into this organization. This is a true honor. I've been doing demolition derbies for since as far back as I can remember. I think I remember it goes back to about 1968. I was about 5 years old, and I loved auto racing. I loved oval track racing, stock cars, but I never knew my love for demolition derbies until I found a sledgehammer and turned all my red line Hot Wheels into the scrapyard. I still remember that day. My backside remembers that day very well, and so I've been doing it for a long time. I'd really like to thank Doug for nominating me, and all the work he did to putting in to get my pictures and all the history of my racing. Doug, thanks a lot. You did a great job. The other night I was thinking, I was laying in bed. I woke up about 3 in the morning and I realized I had to get up here and do a speech. And Doug had told me previously, he said, Keith, try to keep it to about 2 minutes. So I laid in bed there for about 2.5 hours, going over and over who I was going to thank, what I was going to say. 2.5 hours. So I'm going to give you the short version. It's 10 minutes. Just kidding. I'll keep it to a couple minutes. Back in 2003, I got inducted into the Victoria Auto Racing Hall of Fame. And it was a surprise to me. I had no idea. My wife even tricked me into going to the event so that I wouldn't know I was being inducted. So when I got there and I got inducted, I was caught off guard. I didn't have a speech prepared or anything, and I really forgot to thank a few people that really helped me throughout my career. If I could just take a minute here just to thank some of the people that I forgot, it would mean a lot to me. I'd like to thank Ken and Irene Peterson, Bill and Ricky Wiley, the Van de Kerkhoff family from Payless Gas, amazing sponsors. Some of my buddies that helped me, Andy Clark, Sean Fagan, Ted Hooks, Rob Johnson, and Robbie and Randy Price. Without those people, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Some of my greatest moments in auto racing were when I ran, hit the pass, but my true forte, my true love was the demolition derbies, the last car survivor. And when I found out about the Pacific National Exhibition and all the derbies they had over there, I needed to go over there and wreck some cars. So I went over and I started wrecking them, and I ran Canadian Pacific 3-car team championship. We went over as a rookie team against some amazing drivers, and the first year we went over, we won the championship, and then we came back two consecutive years. Dave Sadler, Jamie Peekman, and Ron Fleming and we won 3 in a row, and it was just an amazing event. I remember one year one of our cars wouldn't start. We were heading into our second round, so there was 2 drivers against 3 American drivers from Washington State. We knew we were done. But we went out there, and at the end of the derby, Dave Sadler and I, both our cars were still running, and all 3 of the U.S. cars were totally destroyed. It was an amazing event. The fans were going crazy, the crew members were going crazy, and it was absolutely one of the highlights of my life. Running on the team events was really special. I got elected to run with Team Canada against the American team at the P&E. Got to run with some great drivers, Murray Chambers, Kenny Bako, Rick Pemble, Angelo Dimitri, that are members of this organization, true champions and true legends, and I looked up to these folks, and I got to run with them on team events. It was amazing. But the absolute best part of it was the best team of all was my family. I couldn't have done this without my family, my wife, my mom and my dad, my sisters, all my friends, all the friends that helped me over the years. I really want to share this award with every one of them. I thank you all so very much.
Thanks, Keith. Well, you're getting your picture taken. On a personal note, one of the low lights of my 25-year career in television news was going in a demolition derby car with Rick Temple, Captain Crunch, and I had the crap beaten out of me, I'll tell you. There's no experience like that. These guys that do this, they have big kahunas.
Thank you, everybody.
Next, we got the Steve Crevier for motorcycle racing, presented by Todd Copeland.
I kind of figured that.
Thanks, Al. Can you hear me? Or you do have to speak up for this one, don't you? Okay. Good afternoon, folks. I'm representing the motorcycle end of the program. Today we're honoring Steve Crevier, who was, for a bit of a short bio on him, he was born in Montreal but moved at a young age to Poco and was raised in Port Coquitlam. He began his professional career racing at Westwood Racetrack back in 1984. He credits Tom Tyre and Bill McLean of Pacific Yamaha, which unfortunately does not exist, and both are passed away. They're both great guys. Bill's a pioneer. But he does also credit one fellow who's been an influence in his life, was Tony Cordy of Yamaha, representative of Western Canada. And in preparation for today, I phoned Tony. I've known him for a few years. And I told him what was going on, and I said, give me a couple of quick statements on Steve. The first one he said was very telling. He said the three words that describe Steve are dedicated, determined, and winner. He goes, how else do you account for the fact that he won the AMA 600 championship without winning a single race that year? He made the dedication and determination saw him on the podium every race in second or third. That was enough for the points title, which is amazing. Tony also said Steve was a fabulous ambassador for the manufacturers he rode for. And he represented the brands very proudly and waved the Canadian flag better than most people he knew around the world. Tony would know he spent most of his life traveling and representing the motorcycle industry. Steve came to be a force to be reckoned with, racing in Canada, the US, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Macau, and France. And for brands, he rode for Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Honda, Buell, and not to be outdone, Harley Davidson. That proves that you can ride almost anything, right?
Yep, on two wheels.
And it led to a total of 21 combined Canadian and US championships in a career that spanned 30 years. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Steve as our 24 inductee.
Well, I hope you guys got a lot of time on your hands. I talk a lot, don't really get my point across. But hey, you know what? I was raised a Port Coquitlam kid, and I can remember the days in my bedroom window, because across the valley I can hear the Formula Atlantics run at Westwood. And when the wind was right and things were right, the bikes, you can hear a little bit of like murmuring through there. And all my life I just dreamed about being a racer, riding. And it was my relatives, my uncles and my grandfather on my mother's side that got me up to Westwood, you know, in the 70s to see some of these Formula Atlantics drive around. And then I got to see the bikes, and that started a scratch. I was an itch. I just couldn't scratch enough. I got to watch the likes of Stephen Baker ride, Jimmy Dunn, and the miraculous super tuner Bob Gord, who all worked for Dealey's. Trev Dealey at the time was such a massive influence in road racing and bringing in all the Japanese manufacturers into Canada through the 70s and the late 60s. But the bug really got to me. But, you know, couldn't afford bikes and stuff like that until we were about 15, and my dad got me a motocross bike, and we made our way to Mission Racetrack, did some dirt bike riding, and went through a lot of parts and made a lot of mistakes and wrecked a lot of dirt bikes and had a really great time. But my starting roots in riding was definitely off-road. All that, you know, come ahead to in 1984, I was working, and I needed a faster way to get to Vancouver from Port Coquitlam to get to work for my father's company, and I thought, I'll try to get myself a RZ350 Yamaha and see if I can make better time on the road going to work. Well, in 2 months, within 2 months, I had 5 accidents on the road. And basically, I wrote the bike off and I couldn't do it anymore, so I took it up to Westwood and bought a license. You didn't have to do a race school, didn't have to do anything. Bought a license for $80 and we got free Wednesday night practices and started riding. My lap times were pretty good and I didn't really crash all that much, not like being on the street. So I never went back to riding on the street. And lo and behold, first day of racing, I was well enough to take fourth behind all the pros because on a rainy day, there's only like 12 professionals, but there's like 40 amateurs. So I was at the back of the grid on all that, made my way up, and never looked back since then. And going full forward, I knew that we were losing our racetrack at Westwood, and sadly enough, I sort of turned my back on it to try to ride nationally, and I was already racing in the States and had some success at a world level. I had the chance and opportunity to actually win a World Superbike round in Mexico City, an invitational race on the World Superbike circuit. And I mean, being just a privateer from the West Coast of Canada that's a pretty big deal, and I'm pretty proud of that. And everybody says to you, I'm 59 now, and they say you live in your past, and you got to get on with your life and do other things. And I'm like, I lived out all my childhood dreams. I got nothing else. Everything else is just a gift from this point forward. And I'm so happy, so appreciative of those years of learning and cutting my teeth and riding and seeing the greats in the 70s, Stephen Baker being a world champion, and picking him as my hero, my idol. And the legacy of the Dealey family and being the whole West Coast thing is very important to me because I do love the West Coast. I love Canada a lot. And I'm always proud, no matter where I've been and where I've gone and what I've done with racing, to represent Canada. And being from where I've come from, I just want to take this time to express the gratitude I have and the thanks of the the Greater Vancouver Motorsport Pioneer Society for, I think about 25 years ago, making me an honorary member. And I've always been a little attentive to what's going on, but I really, really enjoy the fact that I'm up here talking about bike stuff and everything after Demolition Derby speeches. And when I was a child, my mother, didn't have a lot of money, but the PE was easy to get to, and those, I think it was Friday or Sunday, Demolition Derbies, and man, I just loved every minute of that. And it's one of those things on a bucket list, but now oh, my neck's too sore, my wrists are too sore. I don't want to go to a Demolition Derby now, everything hurts. But I gotta tell you, I'm super appreciative of the range of motorsports and the interest and bringing it all together and being recognized, and the accolades that I received from this. I can tell you that I'm just so delighted, so touched. And to carry my story farther, because I was so into the Dealey's thing in the 70s as a child, I got to live out the last years of my racing for Dealey's and racing the Harleys and the Buells, and ended my career, got to actually travel with the legendary tuner that worked for Steve Baker. His name's Bob Gord, but sadly he's passed away. But just the legacies that live on and the appreciation I have for everybody in all range of motorsports. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate being honored tonight. Thank you. Do I get a plaque?
And a cup.
I got a cup. Oh, no,
Thanks very much. These are great stories.
oh. Like that? Like that?
Congratulations. Our next inductee is Brad Eldridge for drag racing, and Michael Moore is going to do the presentation. Michael, Brad.
Thanks, Ellen, and thanks for doing this for 15 years. You do a great job. If you want to go along, it's on page 28 and 29 in the book. And, you know, I shortened it up a bit after Steve spoke. While watching the inductions pioneers last year, I thought of my friend of 70 years, Grant Eldridge, would meet the criteria as a pioneer. So we got together, reminisced, and I wrote the story. It's actually 70 years ago this month. We met grade 1. At 18, Grant's first serious car was a glass roof 54 Ford Coupe running a wide log. See, I remember this car because I used to have to jump out, retard the timing, and then when it started, I'd have to advance it. It's a little wet sometimes too. Remember that? Seeking more horsepower and more fun, he purchased a well-known blue 63 Bel Air 409 4-speed coupe, and I think some people might know Bob Williamson. He used to race at Arlington and had a little blue plexiglass scoop. And so Grant purchased that, and he did mostly street racing with it. And street racing was easy for Grant because he lived in South Surrey, and he had a 2-mile stretch of road beside his mom's house. And he painted the quarter mile with a yardstick, 1,320 feet. And so Friday nights, people came from Bellingham and Blaine and the parties and the street racing because nobody else lived there. It was great. And you know, after that he bought a 67 Chevelle, and didn't really thrill him because he really wanted to go drag racing. So he purchased a very famous car, the Z11 63 Impala from Seattle's Alan Green Chevrolet. That was a lightweight superstock, aluminum components, a well-known car. It's being restored. It's now worth millions. He's doing a big block, Grant's favorite block, and a huge shoot scoop, named it the Tunnel Run. And with his main sponsor and employer, Calvan, he hit the Northwest drag strips running in modified production for the next couple of years. Grant noticed a change to small block cars, or smaller muscle cars, sorry. So he bought a 67 Camaro with a big block, again, and was rewarded with the A-Stock class win at the 69 Winter Nationals in Pomona. Stock and super stock cars win by tenths, tiny fractions of seconds. So if you can get an edge, you move on to another car. So Grant moved on to a convertible Camaro. Some people remember it as the multi-painted car. Every single panel had a different paint. Anyhow, he of course threw in a big block, and the weight break and just a few pounds made the car more competitive. Within 2 years, the trend required going back to big cars, so Grant jumped into 65 and 69 Chevys, and he was rewarded with a Wally at the 73 Winter Nationals, plus a super stock win at Van Isle. That was the last race ever at Van Isle, wasn't it? Yeah. By the mid-70s, though, Grant had tired of all the money going out, nothing coming in, so he called it a day and went back to work. However, 25 years later, the bug bit again, and starting with a 70 big block Nova, which he worked on in my garage for a month. He set 2 national records, then moved the motor to a Camaro Coupe, setting even more records. But in 2015, he decided he'd had enough, and he and Cheryl bought a 37-foot Tollycraft, really gorgeous boat. It has 2 big blocks. So you're turned 60. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Mike. Yeah, awesome friend, Mike, for 70 years, and very kind of him to go to all the time and trouble to sit down with me and go over all this history, because my memory is pretty bad at 78, but we figured out that we'd actually run 12 cars over the years at 14 different tracks up and down the coast of California, and 48 years, so it's been quite an adventure. And mainly, when I think of it all, when Mike and I went over it all, I'm thinking of all the people that helped me. And it wouldn't have been possible. There were so many wonderful people that gave me information and helped me with the car. And I'd just like to take a couple of minutes to mention a few of those people. Probably starting with Jack Williams. A lot of you people would know him. And I was a 19-year-old kid, and I showed up at his shop with a couple of 409 cylinder heads. And he probably thought, what the hell? You know, but anyway, he helped me, and we worked on the 409 a lot and broke everything that you could imagine in that car, and eventually moved on to some other cars. And there's some other pioneers that gave me a hand in those days. There was high performance engines, Bud Childs. There was Somo that a lot of people would know. There was Bob Nottingham, who gave me a tip that helped the car run a tenth faster, that one thing. And a dear friend who passed way too soon, Jim Armstrong, wonderful guy, gave me a lot of help. And in the days when I was sponsored by Calvan, he and I traveled together down to California, and he was a very, very smart guy and had a wonderful sense of humor. So these guys are all what made it happen. And then, so I went back to work in 74, 75, and then got the bug again. When I found a 70 Nova, and we put that together as a bracket car initially. But Bennett gave me a hand, with some of the prep on that car at Kerrisdale Speed Center. And then Buck and I started talking about putting a big block in and going after stock eliminator and NHRA class racing. Buck had just sold his car, and he gave me a ton of help. We put together an old junk engine with parts he had kicking around. And Dan, it didn't end up running 6/10 under the index. So that was really good, but it wasn't good enough to set a record. So I had to step up and spend some real money. And then we made a connection through Cal Method, who's a famous Northwest drag racer. He put us in touch with the guys with the latest and greatest parts, the high dollar stuff. And all of a sudden the car was a half a second faster, and we were able to set the national record in 2006 at Seattle, actually twice. And the guy that was the most help of all was Ron Walsh, an amazing, gifted machinist and a wonderful friend. And he let me build my engines at his shop. He came to Jimmy Richmond's with me, and we dynoed the engines together. We even blew one up, never made it into the car, but that's racing, right? So anyway, he did all this stuff with me, and I couldn't have done it without all of these people and all the help and all the knowledge and all their experience. Really, all I did was build the engines, put them in the car, and run them down the track. And all these other people gave me the knowledge and the help and made it all happen. So I'm incredibly blessed and thankful to all those people. And thank you. It's an incredible honor to be GVMPS, and this is a little bit crazy at 78 years old. Loving it though. Thank you very much. Wait, one more thing. My wife is listening. Without her 150% help out there working on the last car, and we got that last car, number 12, finished. We took it to the track, and it set the record on the first pass. And that was my wife. Thank you.
Good save, man. While we're doing that, can Ryan Evans come up? He's the next inductee, right?
I'm not sure he's here. John
Okay. All right, so our next inductee is Brian Evans, who will be presented by John Randall. You want to see something, John? John Randall.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of embarrassing. You guys are
Want to speak up right into the microphone, John?
right in here? Okay. Anyway, Brian and I entered the aviation program about 1965. After 10 years, I had to give up racing because of ships I had to fly. When I retired, Brian excelled. It wasn't long before two geniuses came together, Brian Evans and Tom Johnson, keen engineer. They excelled what they tried to do, and they won more than their share of the goodies. I just wish that Tom Johnson and Brian's were up here instead of me. Thank you.
I'll just say a few words about Brian as well, which you can read about, but sadly Brian passed away in 2003, but like John, he was a commercial pilot, and what has been described as a natural driver. He and his friend Charlie Craig each bought Royale Formula Fords to race at Westwood and the Knox Mountain Hill Climb. Soon he was driving Tom Johnson's PDA-powered JM2 sports racer. That's big time. Tom and Brian campaigned the sports racer at Westwood and nearby American tracks with great success. Later, Brian drove Tom's Formula Atlantic JM3 car with considerable success. In 1978, he took the D Sports Racing title at the Canadian Automobile Sports Club's Race of Champions at Westwood. Brian was a great hill climb driver, winning at Knox Mountain numerous times, and he set an overall hill record in 1980. As I said, sadly, Brian passed away in 2023, but we honor his memory. Next inductee is Cam McKenzie for sports cars and road racing. I'll say a few words about Cam. Cam is the son of longtime motorsport fan Alistair McKenzie. The father and son team competed at Westwood in a variety of very fast cars, beginning with a Lotus 7, then a Lotus 23B twin cam race car. In 1967, he bought the former Graham Hill Brabham BT22 Formula B race car, which usually won Westwood events. In 1970, he set a Westwood track record at the season opener race. His record-setting Brabham Formula B car is still around, now owned by Tim Osborne of Seattle, who races it in vintage events. Cam McKenzie.
My daughter just handed me a note here to what I'm supposed to say. I didn't have anything prepared. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for this honor. And second of all, and most important, condolences for Tom Johnson's family. He was a good friend, and he'll be missed by all. I don't have much of a story, but later on we changed that car into a Formula Atlantic car. We got the front dive planes off a Cessna, and the rear wing we had. But we went into the Formula Atlantic races, and the first race we were going to, I think, was down in Sebring. We stopped off at Portland at my brother's house and came out, and all my tires and tools were all stolen. So luckily we were pitted next to the Smothers Brothers down in Sebring, and everybody there helped us out, got us going again. I don't have very much to say, but I really feel for Tom's family and friends. He's a great guy. And thank you very much.
Well, I can tell you, I never raced at Sebring, so what can I say? Next inductee is Bob McDonald for Hot Rods and Custom Cars, presented by Steve Holloway. Steve. Hi, Bob.
Well, as we look into the hot rodding life, hot rodding is many different people take it at many different angles. Bob's been there, done that. He's got the shirt to prove it. And for hot rodding, we all go down a little path in life, but Bob chose a little special path, created a audience and loved by all, and he's built some tremendous cars, and I have never met a hot rodder dedicated to the sport and hot rodding as you could ever be. He lives, he breathes it, it's in his blood, and it ain't going away ever. Bob, I'd like to introduce Elaine Arsenault, wants to have a couple of words, and Bob, come on, Jimmy. Jim, come on up. So this is Elaine Arsenault, a couple of words, and Jimmy James, Bob's nephew, great friend, and adopted kid. Go ahead.
I don't really have too much to say other than I've known Bob since I was about 15, so that's what, about 10 years, Bob? And throughout those years, I haven't really hung out with Bob per se building hot rods. It was more growing up in my hometown. He was always driving around in his truck. My husband fished with him when he took a bit of a break from building cars, as well as owning a bar by the name of McGillis, downtown New West. But what I did find out, sitting with him throughout this little thing in the book that we wrote, I realized, holy crap, 150 cars at least in a matter of about 64 years Bob has been a part of building, which is huge in my world. One of the things that stuck out with me at the end is I said to Bob, well, what do you think? After I read him what is in the book, and he said, wow, he said, I've never really had anybody tell me my life story. And I said, well, I said, that's it. And I said, what's one of your highlights, Bob? And he said, well, he said, that's a really hard one to imagine. But I will say that it's all the people I've met along the way, because car people can be some of the best friends ever.
What she said. I'd just like to thank everyone responsible for getting me the honor. I'm very happy. And I'd like to say a big shout out to the roadmen. They helped a lot. Thank you.
Go, Bob. On behalf of the GVMPS, it's great to have you inducted this year.
Thank you very much.
Come on. Here we go. Come on, read it. Give me here. Come on, Dad. Here we go.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
All right, up here now, we're going to have 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3.
Lots of great cars. Our next inductee is Tracey Pearson for sports cars. Tracey, Dennis.
Tracey, come on up.
Right. Yeah. Hey.
driver training in '81 at Westwood. And I don't think she stopped driving for months after that. She just did so much practice up at the track and got so used to driving up there. And she drove a 510 back then. She's graduated now up to Miato, Turbo Miato. It just is incredible up the track. And she sure kicks butt. Any of the guys out there will tell you. And she started a few years ago with a couple of people, and we now have the women in motorsport to promote the women, because we need a few of you out there. There is a few, but we need some more. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that and let her fill in. There's all the information is in the handbook, the section.
Speak into the mic.
Okay, good afternoon. First, I would like to thank Devin for the nomination and the introduction, plus the Greater Vancouver Motorsport Pioneer Society for this honor. So why motorsports? Everyone in this room has a different reason for that.
Get closer!
Just kiss it! Kiss it! Okay, we'll start. Okay, everybody in this room has a different reason for loving the sport. You might be passionate about cars, motorcycles, boats, or racing. For my 21-year-old self, it all started with adrenaline. Wow, and driving a race car can be an incredible high. But I was quick to realize the commitment that racing was going to take. The time, the cash, and as we call it, a whole lot of schlepping. The driving is 5% of the time, and I know you think that is very generous, but the 95% is what keeps you coming back. Working on cars, making them handle, then adding more power, all to win that plastic trophy seemed to make so much sense at the time. And it still does. So for my 65-year-old self, it's been about the journey. This sport has given me so much. The challenge, the thrill, the community. I have met the best people. For instance, my husband of 44 years, Andy Pearson. He started specialty engineering, and I joined him in business in 1981. He built our cars, taught me how to race, and together a love and commitment for our business, motorsport, and each other. Who doesn't love a guy who gives your hand a squeeze on pre-grid and tells them, you have this, go get him. And then in pre-grid, sitting in pre-grid and looking up and seeing our daughters, Jackie and Julie, and our grandson Quinn, turning me on, I love that. So during this time, I raced 3 cars. The Datsun 510 at Westwood was the first car I learned to race on. I still miss it. The second was a GT1 Camaro, Portland and Seattle. And that one gave me the love of the V8 and it taught me some race car respect. The third, starting in 2004, was a Turbo Master Miata with my teammate, Harry Watson. Harry and I are still racing this Master together. We've supported each other for 20 years as we tag team between crewing and racing. It's been a heck of a lot of fun racing a 400 horsepower Miata. We added more boost this year, so we got more power, so we're really knocking on those V8 doors. We mostly race at Mission, where I run 3 races a weekend, usually 4 or 5 times a year. I've had a great time. Thank you for the Jacksons. Wow, longtime friends from motorsport. Our small company built 3 GT3 Nissan 240SXs, and off we went to the SEC runoffs with Colin and Glenda. Colin took home the gold 5 times, and we got to kiss the bricks at Indianapolis, and those are special moments. In 2020, I became involved with the CACC Women in Motorsports group. I was asked to be a committee member, and I thought it would be a great way to give back to the sport that has given me so much. Little did I realize what I would be receiving. It's been an eye-opener to not only to find out so much about other women's stories, but to inspire new women to become involved. Having raced mostly against men, it's been a pretty cool experience to have a woman as a teammate, Courtney Ramon. And we have encouraged each other, shared highs and lows, and even learned new skills as part of our shows. To our friends, Scott, our crew chief. Wow, Lee, Emily, could you people just put your hands up? That would be a lot. All those people over there, yes. Thank you very much for crewing for me and cheering me on. This sport's about camaraderie, bench racing, and telling those old jokes that only we get. It's 43 years of racing. It's priceless. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. And I would like to thank you all for today for adding one great memory.
I was just sitting there trying to imagine driving a Miata with more than 400 horsepower. That'd be quite a ride. So we're being videotaped today. I want to thank Gene Greenwood for doing the videotape of this event. This is the first time we videotaped the whole event. And Catherine from NTD Television up on the stand there. She is doing a video production on this, which is great. We welcome that. So we're getting videotaped. Our next inductee, somebody I've known for a long time and written about, Gord Richter. Hot rods and custom cars. Gord Richter has been the consummate hot rodder since seeing a Model T hot rod on the cover of Hot Rod magazine at the age of 13. 5 years later, he found one in North Vancouver, and using parts from a wrecked Sunbeam Tiger, which is terrific, began the build of a hot rod he would drive to shows and events from BC to California. Then he began the build of a 1932 Dearborn Deuce Roadster, completed on the eve of the 2007 Northwest Deuce Days show in Victoria. A licensed mechanic, Gord is well known for helping others build their cars and fixing broken down hot rods and rides on many cruises as the tours he's been on. A great car guy who is now in the Hot Rod Hall of Fame. Gord.
I'd like to thank Tom Whiffen for nominating me for this award, and the Motorsport Pioneers for accepting me as to the Pioneers Association. I'd also like to thank my wife for all of her support over the years and putting up with me being out in the garage as much as I am. I'd also like to thank my son, who's a second generation hot rodder that's followed in my footsteps, and he's here with his whole family to support me, and hopefully one of his three sons turns out to be a third generation hot rodder. And like Alan said, I've had a Model T in my head since I was 13 years old, and I still have the car to this day. It's out in the parking lot right now, and I've had the car on the road for over 47 years. And I've driven it every year except one throughout that time. It's been near and dear to me my whole life. And I've also had several other cars, a 39 Chevy Tudor sedan. I've had a whole bunch of Chevy pickup trucks, and the Dearborn Deuce that I tour with now. I've got over 75,000 miles on that, taking it on tours up and down the West Coast and as far away as Colorado and Lexington, Kentucky. And I just enjoy the cars all the time, and that's it's in my heart and soul, and that's what I do. Thank you very much for this honor.
Our next inductee is Don Smith, hot rod and oval racing, presented by John Carlson. And I see Don's Model A that's been in his family since brand new is in the parking lot, and I know his son is here today. So John Carlson.
Thanks very much, Alan. Ladies and gentlemen, it really is a great honor for me to present the Don Smith induction today. Don Smith epitomizes what the hobby is all about. Sadly, he passed away in 2013. But some of the background you can follow along on page 40 and 41 in the program today. Don epitomizes the hobby and what it's all about. He was the first to volunteer. He was an early track racer. He was an early hot rod builder well over 50 years ago. He showed his cars often and was awarded for his efforts many, many times. I'm pleased to say that Don's wife, Marina, two of his children, daughter Rose Marie, and son Jim, who's standing on stage with me, are here today along with the extended families and the grandkids. They're right over in the corner, and I'm going to ask them to stand in a few minutes. Don Smith was a spokesman in many ways for the collector car and early stock car racing community in British Columbia. He started his career in motorsport when he was just 16 years old. His parents gave him a 31 Model A Ford, and his grandfather had purchased that same car, brand new, in 1931 here in Vancouver. The car is sitting out in the parking lot today. It's got the hood up. It displays a full race, flathead, Model B engine, dual downdraft carburetors, 3/4 race cam. Don drove that car pretty much all events, and when he was racing at Disney Speedway, he actually towed his race car, the infamous number 43, which featured in the magazine. He used to tow that to the racetrack. Don was a member of the Richmond Rod and Custom Car Association in the early 50s. He drove his Honda modified 31 Model A to many, many, many functions. It was a purpose-built car, and he displayed it at the P&E Custom Car Show many times. It was a winner many times. In the 1940 for the 40th anniversary for the British Columbia Hot Rod Association, it was awarded as People's Choice. 93 years later, Don's son Jim owns the Model A. It's been in the family since 1931. He received the People's Choice Award at the 40th anniversary, but he also received a 50th anniversary award as Most Outstanding Car selected by the RCMP. And I thought the RCMP connection was very fitting. Don was a strong supporter of motorsport, both in showing his cars as well as racing his cars. And today I'm very, very pleased to ask the family to stand. They're with us today. Folks, could you stand, please, for recognition? And then Jim can stay for you.
On behalf of our family, especially my mom, I want to express my gratitude for honoring my father, Don Smith, with this induction. It's a true privilege to accept this award on his behalf. I remember as a kid, my dad had this old car tucked away in our garage. I often bump into it on my tricycle. Some of my favorite memories were when he'd fire it up and go for a spin around the block or road trips to the occasional car show. Though he's gone, that Ford Model A is here with us today outside this building, and we're hoping to showcase it at Tuesdays next July. Dad may not have been the loudest voice, but he was always ready to lend a hand, often volunteering his time to automotive-related events. His quiet dedication to the sport will always be remembered. Thank you for celebrating his legacy. A special thanks to John Carlson for nominating Dad, who would have been truly honored. Our appreciation also goes to Brian Pratt, the Greater Vancouver Motorsport Pioneer Society, and its sponsors. Congratulations to all this year's inductees. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, I guarantee that's the only 93-year-old car that's been in the same family since 1931 in the parking lot. Our next inductee is Ira Young for sports cars and road racing. I had the privilege of talking to Ira's son, Jason, who's come all the way from New York City for this event, and his daughter Blair is here as well from Calgary. That's great that you've done that. I also had the privilege of writing about Ira in yesterday's Vancouver Sun and stories on driver.ca. What a career this man had. It's going to be presented by Jim Greenwood, and here comes Jim. And we'll want Ira's son and daughter up here as well, if you could come up, Jason and Blair.
I made it. I remember the days when I could get up here easy. I seem to be going, God, just a minute. Thank you very much for all of you showing up. What an incredible crowd of motorsport enthusiasts. It's incredible. Thanks for coming. This next one should be easy for me. I worked for Ira for 10 years. The 10 best working years of my life were with Ira. And I got to thinking, we all get involved in motorsports in different ways. And I thought Ira was kind of unique because he didn't start off like most of us did when we were kids. He started off in the middle of his life around, I think, 54 years old or something. And it was kind of unusual. Ira was a developer and built shopping centers and was renowned across Canada as probably the best there was. I'm a little prejudiced because I worked for him. But you might know Coquitlam Center. Ira built and owned that. And I was involved from the beginning. And that's kind of how he got involved in cars. What happened was, my two boys were involved in slalom racing. And slalom racing back in the day, the guys would find a parking lot to set up their course and race on. And as of course, back in the day, shopping centers weren't open on the weekends. So the kids called me and said, could we use Coquitlam Center for a race? So I asked Ira, and Ira said, yeah, they've got insurance. Go ahead. So that started off. A few days later, they said, listen, why don't you bring your car and get Ira to bring his wife's car, the Porsche, out and give it a try and see what you can, have some fun for the day. So we take our cars out and went in, got in with the guys and made runs on the slalom course and had a real good fun day. But here's the hook. Ira enjoyed it, so he had a lot of fun. So he says one day, I'm going to go take driver training up at Westwood because his wife had already done that. And she had the turbo, and so I went up to driver training. The next thing you know, he bought himself, what was the first car?
First car, 2002 TI.
He bought a 2002 TII from right next to one of our members and started racing. He started racing locally and having fun. And then I guess he started migrating farther down south, and then he's doing California runs, and then he got involved with, he bought a team, Jack Baldwin and Cahill. Yeah.
Tommy Cahill was later.
Later, yeah. So he started racing Mazdas. They raced Sebring and Daytona and won, and then the Mazda went on to do a lot. Ira was really involved, really involved. And then I don't know whether you know about the Malibu Grand Prix that were around. We had one in Kelowna and there was one down in Portland. I think they were our two closest. And they were 3/4 size Indy cars, and you could rent time on the track and go out and see how good you could do. And a lot of racers actually used them to kind of hone their skills. Ira owned a company and had, I think, 39 around the world Malibu Grand Prix. So he was majorly involved. And this all happened because he built shopping centers. Somebody wanted to try a slalom. They asked him to try it, and he was hooked on cars, and off he went. He kept getting faster cars because his wife, Lori, was a pretty good driver too, and she could beat him on the track, so he'd get a faster cars. Anyhow, it's my privilege to welcome Ira into the GVMPS. I think he's an asset, and I've got his. Ira passed away in 2003, unfortunately. He was a hell of a nice guy. And I've got his son and daughter here to accept on his behalf.
I know some of you would have to say a few words. You travel all the way here from New York City, Jason.
Thanks, Al. Well, first I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jim, for making sure that my dad got this recognition. It's really wonderful. Alan, thank you so much for the wonderful piece you wrote. That's something that our family will cherish for years to come. And yeah, I'm just really honored, really thrilled about it. About how my dad. Yeah, it's true. Definitely the start was with the slalom. But ultimately, my mom was the pilot back in the day from age 15, and she really had respect for power and for danger. So when she got her 930 turbo and spun out in the rain the first time, she said, "Oh boy, I maybe should take race driver training." So she actually took the training. I think my dad, the story in our family is that his masculinity, he never disputed this. His masculinity was a little bit threatened, so he of course jumped on it. When they shared their first race car, she was beating him. My mom had that finesse, that touch, the gentle touch as a pilot with her feet. That came in handy. She just had a very gentle touch, never scrubbed off time, she would say. And so eventually, that got my dad practicing a hell of a lot because he had to keep ahead of her. And then he got a faster car to make sure he was ahead of her. He just sort of leapfrogged that way. And actually, that's my mom's car, the Sports 2000. And so he had to practice pretty hard to keep ahead of her, and then eventually got into his, kept going. And Jim, I know you said he wasn't the best driver, but he was good enough to be there. Yeah, he was a middle-aged interloper, for sure. But I'll tell you, I'm a decent tennis player, but if I went out against two top 100 tennis players playing doubles tennis and my partner was Djokovic, I ain't winning. So the fact that he won Series 12, for 2 weeks times, yeah, I wasn't even aware of that because I was just a kid at the time. My dad was just driving cars. But yeah, so really honored, really thrilled. Thank you so much for this. And also, my niece is here also. Blair's from Edmonton. Came all the way. We're all from here. Anyway, thank you so much.
Just while I have my picture taken, for the record, Jason Young is an internationally acclaimed artist living in New York City, and we're thrilled to have him with us. Very accomplished family. All right, that's the inductees, the personal inductees. Now it's an opportunity to give the George Bell Memorial Award. Murray Chambers will handle that for us. Another inductee for his daredevil car racing. Murray Chambers. Brian Proud.
I was sitting down there, so I'm trying to work. Anyways,
Murray Chambers was an East Vancouver kid who took a high school camera course back in the 60s. He ended up going to Westwood one weekend in 1967, and that began a stretch of time where Murray got to East Van motorsport venues like Callister Park, the Agrodome, the Coliseum, and the P&E buildings housing the annual BC Custom Car Association Motoramas. Heading further east, Murray included return trips to Westwood and out to the drag races at the original Mission Raceway Park. His photographs appeared in such publications as Motorsport in BC, Auto Week in Competition Press, Wheelspin, and National Dragster. More recently, they have been in Canadian Hot Rods and some books published in the US, as well as our own Pioneers programs. He took thousands of photographs, and luckily they survived the years, mainly because he was and still is, despite downsizing, a pack rat. In recent years, Murray has scanned his negatives and made them available for publication again. All he asks is to be given credit. So on this day, as the most recent George Bell Memorial Award winner, an award given to a person for preserving motorsport history in BC, we honor and credit, to go back to that high school assignment, the A+ contributions of Murray Chambers. Murray?
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'd like to thank the GVMPS for including me for this award, which is very, very prestigious. And I'd also very like to thank Brian Pratt for his introduction, for his nomination, and for the article he wrote for the book. What started out as a high school project in 1967 ended up 50 years later as a retirement project. In 1968, we were doing a photo shoot out of Mission Raceway with Doug Harder, who was the publisher of Motorsport BC magazine. And they had a celebrity and press mini bike race on the drag strip. Well, Doug entered me representing Motorsport BC magazine and ended up winning the event in my very, very first trophy, beating out celebrity DJ John Tanner for the win. Also in 1968, we're doing a photo shoot at Westwood on the practice day on a Saturday. The Sports Car Club of America points meet, and a local racer named Chris Dougal was racing a McLaren, and he had a soft rollover into the dirt on the outside of turn 4. He got out of the car safely, but a few seconds later, the car got fired. And being mostly made of magnesium, and that it was very hard fire to put out because magnesium creates its own oxygen. He literally had to bury it in dirt to put the fire out. The flames were still flicking out of the air pockets. Anyway, to make a long story short here, the Sports Car Club of America tech officials had to find out the cause of this fire. So they were looking for a photographer to do a bunch of shots, and I was the one who made available. So we did a whole bunch of shots, and then he said, well, how soon can I get them? Well, I said, this is like more than one shot, 3 weeks back then in the 60s. So I had the small bathroom we had downstairs in my parents' home, I had turned into a dark room. I stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning, processing all these photos, got them to him the next day. And then he gives me the bad news, I'm sorry, I can't pay you. So he said, but if you want to come down to Seattle International Raceway next weekend for the Trans Am race, I will have a VIP press pass waiting for you. So I jumped at that opportunity, made it down there, and expecting this to be a one-shot deal. It turned out it was good for 3 years, covered every event at SIR, including Trans Am racing, USAC, Formula Continental, Formula 5000, and all the drag races, NHRA National Open, 64 funny cars, and every race they had going there. And it was just right up front and center with all the big stars of motorsport back in that day. And then in 1974, I almost lost all the negatives. We had a very serious house fire in the early morning of Christmas Day, 1974. The only thing that survived in the house was the items that had locked up in a heavy steel plastic cabinet. Luckily, the negatives were in there. I lost about 10% to heat and water damage, but the truck was able to recover a few of them. So then back after my retirement from ICBC, I wanted to start using these photographs for different publications, etc. So I was able to get myself a negative scanner. I probably spent well over 100 hours processing what I could figure conservatively about 10,000 negatives for motorsport all over Western Canada and Western United States. I made those available to anybody that wanted, including Harry Dunaway's Canadian Hot Rod magazine, and just carry on working from there. So So, in conclusion, I would just like to thank the pioneers for considering for the support. And I'd also like to thank my wife for 42 years, and we've been together 42 years, and 42 is my racing number. I thank her for putting up with me all these years and all the projects I've been involved with. Thank you.
This award for achievement and contributions to motorsports couldn't go to a better guy. What hasn't been said here is Murray Chambers was one of the top demolition derby drivers in the history of demolition derby driving. And he was also a stunt driver, jumping school buses and rollovers and all that. You can never tell by looking, and he's got more awards in his own Hall of Fame than I've ever seen. Well, Murray Chambers, congratulations. Our final induction today is for the club we want to recognize, and that's the Greater Vancouver Motorcycle Club, presented by Jim Greenwood. And I know quite a few members are here today. Here comes Jim.
Thanks, Ellen. You got it, made it back up again. This time I kind of got to read it because I don't remember all the names. It is a really great pleasure to welcome the GVMC to our group. They've been around 102 years. 102 years. And it was started by my old boss, Fred Dealey, back in 1922. I didn't really, you know what, when I worked for Fred, I didn't know he started the club. They started it at his office at 901 West Broadway. The building is still there. It was where the Austin shop was, and where the old boy used to sit upstairs and complain about sales. After a few years, they were originally called the Lions Gate Motorcycle Club. And after a few years, they merged with the High Hatters and called themselves the Greater Vancouver Motorcycle Club. The GVs are a very family-oriented club. They encourage family members and the kids to come out in both road rides and trail rides and competitive field meets. You don't have field meets anymore, do you? No. Field meets used to be some fun, I'll tell you. Crazy good fun. The club, over the years, well, from 102 years, you know, obviously, they've moved around. They have their own clubhouse. They started off with their own, I think, was it first in Boundary, wasn't it? That was the first one. And then they've had a couple in between, but now they're out in Port Kells. And they, like I say, they encourage people to come out. They have a very good website, and for any bike riders here, they encourage people to come out and ride with them. They have things like the Caribou Trails, which has just finished its 94th consecutive run up the interior. They have other runs that aren't, they're new, kind of new runs, 74 years consecutively, 60 years consecutively. More years than most of us have been alive, they've been holding motorcycle runs. Besides the runs, the club really contributes to the communities. They do a lot of charity work. They're very, very big on working for the Children's Hospital. They have runs. They're one of the clubs that started the toy run for children. They do a lot of community work by marshalling parades or special events, security, and things like that. All of which the communities really appreciate having them around. And their whole motto right from the beginning is bettering the image of motorcycling. They're very
strict on their rules. They do a good job. They're a club that I'm very proud to know the guys, and I'm glad that they're going to be a member of our GVMPS. I can't think of a more deserving club. I'd like to wish, I wish I had a note here. I wish our good friend and member Terry Ray, who is our bike motorcycle guru, he couldn't be here because thank you. Be here today, but I know he'll appreciate hearing that there was a round of applause. And I am very honored to be able to welcome the GVMPS into our GVMPS. Yeah, let you know. This is Wade Harris.
I'm not a great speech maker, but I would like to, on behalf of the Greater Vancouver Motorcycle Club, would like to thank the Greater Vancouver Motorsport Pioneer Society for recognizing our club for induction into this great society. We're incredibly honored. Thank you very much for that. As Jim put on, the club has been around for 102 years. I've been around for 65. And I got another partner of mine down there, Larry, probably there, I think he's a longer member than I am. So there's a few of us seniors still left. I still ride 2 once in a while. The constitution of the club was put together in around the Societies Act in 1939, and we've been working under that forever. Originally, as I said, we were located in Vancouver, and we moved to Boundary Road, and then with the help of Henry Garvey, Larry, and father there, we were able to put a warehouse onto our property, and we built it up from there with rentals and stuff. We got what we have today, and the club is doing fine as far as financially, and we own our own properties and that kind of stuff in Port Kells. Excuse me. We're also involved, as we said, with the off-road stuff, and our club is in partnership with Rec Sites and Trails BC, and we do preparation and trail riding and trail races out in the Chilliwack Valley and Chipmunk Creek. Over the years, as I said earlier, we've been involved with charities. I'd like to say thanks to Jackie Hebler, who is here today on her Hebler Run, and has produced in probably close to $200,000 donated to the Children's Hospital and also others to the Firefighters Association as well. So thank you, Jackie. It makes it successful for everybody. Excuse me. In 2010, we were inducted into the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame, a tribute to our members and past and present who make the GVMC an organization we are proud of today. I would also like to thank the Pioneer Society members Tom Whippen, Jim Greenwood, Terry Ray, for also my son Brian for helping us get inducted into this famous Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Okay, so while the picture is being taken, we want all the inductees to bring their awards up to the front so we can get a group picture. Then we'll also get a group picture with the Greater Vancouver Motorcycle Club members as well. First, the inductees to come up. Stay here. I want to have your attention. So everybody who was inducted today, please come up with a representative. Come up with the trophies. Somebody didn't get the mug, so pick your mug up. And Jerry Fitzgerald's going to get your picture. It's important for us to record this historical induction. Also, it's Steve Holloway knows who hasn't bought their 50-50 ticket. He knows who you are, so now is your time to redeem yourself or buy your 50-50 tickets. Buy your wine draw tickets at the front. get up to the silent auction area where I'm going to go after this. You get your name down on wonderful items for sale. Bernie Lockwood is here with his hot rod book up at the front here. Bernie, please stand up. Oh, you are standing.
Really, really old pictures.
I've got the hook here.
Funny how I saw that up in Vernon. I was up hunting last week, and I saw that in Vernon, and I thought, where the hell did you get that? The guy at the Coast Bridge. I knew I'd come here, I'd ask the question where it is, but I never found it.
You're a good read, lots of history in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what we're getting in the group shot is like you're buying your wine draw tickets, your 50/50 tickets, while you're grazing out at the silent auction. I think we've got the food out. Can we put a hand up if the food is up in the back? Is the food up at the back? Right? So this year we've streamlined the process. We'll have one line on the left, that's the north side of the building, but we'll have both sides of the table to go through. We're going to streamline the breaking of the bread this year. So the idea is for everybody to hang around, visit, get acquainted with each other, meet old friends, buy your 50/50 tickets. Cold drinks are for sale in the alcove on the north side of the building. The silent auction, the wine draw tickets. We will have our draws once the food is served. That's the door prize draw, the specialty car orders draw, the wine draw, and finally the 50/50. We're right on time here at 3:30. So enjoy the food, enjoy each other. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.